because I get it. You know, you need to turn a profit or whatever, and suddenly tralala around the fire's not working for you.
Sorry, and we call that consultation. That's just listening circles.
Who's got the listening stick? Hello and welcome to The Big Con, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and simplifying the world of strategy, exploring its impact on businesses and individuals who've either harnessed it for success or perhaps missed the mark. I'm Emily, Harvard degree graduate.
And I'm Dale, big business nerd and self-proclaimed content aficionado.
And we are bringing you in on the con, sharing the valuable lessons from both the failures and triumphs of those who've come before us. Now, Dale, you haven't told me much about what we're doing today, but from what you have told me, I'm a little bit nervous.
Oh, you should be, because I'm going to come out swinging, Emily, because I feel like you have been misinforming our listeners for the greater part of the last 4 seasons of this podcast.
What?
Because this piece of strategic advice that you so often offer is build a community. But what if I told you that the very community that you build for your business can be the one that burns it to the ground?
Well, I'd say you haven't built a very good community, but that is neither.
Let's get into it. But sure, on paper, makes sense. You build a community around your business, you leverage network effects, you get free marketing. It creates a natural moat. That means it reduces churn. People create user-generated content, and there's often amazing scenarios where the community creates peer-to-peer support, which reduces your operational costs. This all seems amazing. You can use your community to get feedback on your products. It improves that product. You can find trends from your community. It drives product development. Your community is telling you what bugs they want you to prioritize. And sometimes they offer free QA service. It can build your brand. It's stronger social proof. Automatic trust building, all these things that say why building a community is nice. You can convert your community into a stronger revenue stream if you so wish, upselling them on merchandise or extra features, hosting meetups and events. Community building is a great strategy. You have cried until it's not. I've spent the greater part of this season working in secret to build a case regarding all the businesses who had amazing communities, only for those communities to turn on them with pitchforks and the worst fate known to business.
This reeks of you.
I'm a spiteful little man. So, Em, I'm going to dish them up. And after the break, I want you to tell me whether you think that building a community is still the right way to go, or if I've completely changed your mind. Are you ready?
I'm strapping in. I'm open-minded.
Good. Make sure you have a notebook as well. Let's begin. Our first cautionary tale, Etsy. Picture this. It's an online marketplace that was supposed to be the anti-Amazon, where every item came with a story and a real person behind it. Their tagline, handcrafted items, just for you. We're talking Christmas ornaments that didn't come from a factory in bulk, personalized drawings where the artist actually knew your name, Damascus knives that Grandpa actually forged in his workshop. And the numbers seem to prove this model worked. Founded in 2005, Etsy rode this artisanal wave straight to Wall Street, and they IPO'd in 2015 with a cool $1.8 billion valuation. And during the pandemic's crazy craft days, they peaked at a whopping $30 billion before settling back to a pretty still impressive $8 billion. Etsy is going okay. But here's where a heartwarming craft fair story takes a sharp turn into corporate reality. See, in preparation for that tempting IPO, Etsy started to play a different game. Suddenly, manufacturers could join the party. Now, poor Aunt Etna's specially handcrafted Rosario beads were sharing shelf space with Big Rosario trademark and their factory-fresh alternatives. And once those fancy IPO dollars were in the bank, well, that's when handmade became more of a suggestion. These days, instead of hand-drawn artwork, you're just as likely to find AI-generated prints. That anti-Amazon handmade stance is now more handcrafted, just for you. Well, you and 10,000 other people who bought the exact same item from a factory in Shenzhen. I'm calling this the authenticity paradox. It's that excruciating moment that many businesses face, that when a platform has to choose between staying true to its roots and satisfying shareholders' appetites for growth. The original Etsy artisans are filthy. This is the original community that built this platform, contributed to this platform, and now they can't see their space in it. It's impossible to tell whether you're actually on Etsy, Amazon, or Temu unless you check the URL, a marketplace identity crisis. The community has fractured into two camps: the purists who still believe in the handmade dream, and the dropshippers who are riding this new wave all the way to the bank, or so their special TikTok course you can buy for $7.99 would have you believe. But if you think that's a community betrayal, wait till I tell you about our next one. Let's go to Tumblr.
Yeah, I remember Tumblr. It doesn't still exist, does it?
It still exists.
No way.
And it's one of the early microblogging platforms. Social networks with content sharing. That was its shtick. Users create and share blog posts, GIFs, videos, texts, and have their own unique pages. Tumblr was famous for its reblogging system, and something that helped content go viral within the system. But its key point of differentiation was creative expression and rich multimedia content. Tumblr happily fostered niche communities within its platform. Young adult author John Green owes much of his success to Tumblr, with such a strong presence leading to many of his book-to-movie adaptations. Big, sometimes very thirsty fandoms around Doctor Who, Sherlock, and Supernatural, dubbed Super Wholock, built up on Tumblr, sharing theories, complex analytical posts, and much, much more. Seriously, just plenty of thirst traps around Matt Smith. It's odd. Tumblr was weird. There was a hyper-specific aesthetic blogs in this space. Example, crime scenes with soft lighting. But people love this space. Social justice education groups, and tons of adult content. I'm going to come back to the adult content. Tumblr arrives in about 2006, and it shares a similar pocket of the net to MySpace. Yahoo wobbles in and buys them for $1.1 billion. Not too bad. However, Yahoo regrets this purchase and mismanages it for so long. It meanders along until someone buys Yahoo, Verizon, and it becomes a footnote of a company, so much so that at a whopping 99.7 value loss, Verizon sell it to parent company of WordPress, Automatic, for $3 million. This is the equivalent of buying a Ferrari and trading in for a slightly used bicycle. You might think that selling to a corporate giant like Yahoo would be the beginning of the end for this weird old community site, and you'd be right, but not for the reasons you'd expect. You see, while Yahoo was busy mismanaging their shiny new toy into oblivion, failing to actually develop the product, like I jump on Tumblr once a year just to see what it looks like, and it's always 5 years behind, which is quite nice, like a snapshot of the internet, but for all the wrong reasons. At the moment, it's got this kind of Instagram 2020 vibe, but they do something that could be considered the nail in the coffin. And it's here where things get really interesting. And by that I mean catastrophic. They put in a adult content ban on the platform. No doubt, they do this to make it more palatable, to sell and move away from anything that could land them in trouble. No one wants to see their advertising content next to a potential Nazi post. Sure, they swing through their content banning hammer, but they didn't just hit their target, they effectively destroyed their community. When the adult content ban hit, it affected many non-adult communities too. There was art communities that had drawing content. There was LGBTQ plus educational content that was often flagged for inappropriateness. Historical art and photography was affected. Sex education resources were also removed. And there was plenty of body positive content that was often misidentified. The porn ban wasn't just about adult content. It fractured the intricate ecosystem of communities that had formed around identity, art, and education. That was Tumblr. It was a place of self-expression. The platform's attempt to become more advertiser-friendly essentially destroyed the safe spaces that many users had built over the years. The Tumblr community was filthy. The platform had another identity crisis and compelled loss of the core user base. The mass exodus showed how interlinked the communities were. When some left, the whole ecosystem just collapsed, demonstrating the fragility of community-based platforms when trust is broken. Let's go to Reddit. If Tumblr is death by 1,000 cuts, Reddit's tale is more like a custody tale between divorced parents and some kids. The kids in this metaphor are moderators, and both parents think they know what's best. Let me explain. Reddit's a big forum site. It's text-based responses, there is media, across every known topic for humans. Moderation is driven by the community. It allows them to self-organize. Users have one account that they can use across a variety of forums, and it's often called the front page of the internet. The passion in which these people belong to communities is impressive. I'm personally a full-time worker on a variety of Reddit forums, or subreddits as they're called, Oz Finance, the Melbourne one, Marvel, gaming, a whole bunch of other nerdy things. Founded in 2005, it was quickly purchased by Condé Nast in 2006, I believe, owner of Vogue and the New Yorker, for about $20 million, so it's doing all right. And in 2014, it receives a $500 million valuation through some VC funding. It recently IPO'd, so it's public on the stock market. and it's now at a market cap of roughly $21.5 billion. So profits be profited, but the Reddit community is constantly raging. The moderation culture and the subreddit system is millions of organized niche communities with an incredibly strong moderator culture. On occasion, referred to as mini empires, Reddit has a very powerful karma system that rewards contribution and responses that are deemed appropriate by the community. Fan engagement for particular subcultures are emboldened by things like Ask Me Anything. So it's when celebrities come on and you could just ask them absolutely anything. Neil deGrasse Tyson and plenty of other celebrities. I can't name them off the top of my head. I should have done research on this, but
I love that the one that you remember is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
he's a baller. It is user-driven curation at its best. Following the $500 million valuation in 2014, they bring in an interim CEO to make Reddit profitable. They clean up content for advertisers, similar to Tumblr, because it's hard to place an ad for Toda next to straight up porn or controversial subreddits, which do get banned. Reddit fires one of their key staff, Victoria Taylor. This is something that really upset hundreds of thousands of moderators because there was no transition plan for this.
So was Victoria Taylor? What did she do?
She ran the Ask Me Anything. I see her as a bit of like a community engagement role. And so moderators really, really needed her and needed her service and respect her. And she built up that capital. And how do they respond? In protest, a bunch of subreddits went dark. So these really public communities that anyone could access, which were giving Reddit the ability to talk about how many people have visited the website on a daily basis, and they could convert those to paying customers, were all of a sudden private. The users of the platform revolted, and they also collected over 200,000 signatures for the firing of the CEO. The trust was already broken. These people now understood that they didn't actually own their community and the reputation was damaged. But similarly, it showed that users could dictate their wishes, something that businesses like this are a bit afraid of. Reddit, in my opinion, continues to morph away from the beloved forum site it once was in pursuit of profit. Sick of companies scraping the data for free, they upped their API prices, and this cripples a whole bunch of community favorite apps. There's more subreddits going dark. They load up their platform with advertising and NFTs, and it's really in the pursuit of going public. They've also offered to sell all their data to giant AI scraping platforms at a price because they're looking for profit. So, this brings us to the million-dollar question, or should I say the multi-billion-dollar question. When you build your business on the backs of passionate communities, who really owns the soul of the platform? Because these three stories, and there's plenty others, that try to monetize the community is like trying to bottle lightning. It's really impressive if you pull it off, but there's a good chance you're going to get burned. Sam, I walked you through 3 cautionary tales of a community gone wrong. Etsy's identity crisis, Tumblr's spectacular self-destruction, and Reddit's ongoing power struggle. When we come back, I want you to tell me if you're still singing the Build a Community song or if I've successfully ruined your day with cold, hard reality. Don't go anywhere, listeners. This is where it gets good. So, can you have it all? A thriving community and a profitable business. There seems to be a tension between commercial interest and community values. Building community seems to be a noble goal that so many businesses have, and I think the goal of building community is great. But from the countless examples I've seen, I don't feel like these businesses understand what makes them work. Thoughts?
I actually am going to counter slightly to say that I don't think that these examples that we've gone through are an example. I don't think it's a community question. I think it's a does the business know their customer question and who they're engaging with and their stakeholders, because the businesses in each case are making decisions in isolation from the people that literally make their business function and engage, and because they're everything, right? They're customers, their staff, their marketers, their community engagers, they're everything. To go against everything that the business and the community have built together is going to be very alarming to the community. If the business needs to pivot for profitable reasons, there needs to be a rollout that engages community and gets feedback so that there's an ability to shift into new territory that the community also want to shift into. Whereas if you're participating in something, if you're participating in anything in life and the Prime Minister of your country all of a sudden turns around and goes, right, No one said anything about it, but I'm sick of people riding trams, so I'm ripping up all the trams, and the trams are gone. In Melbourne, we have a huge tram network, so that would be terrible. And we're like, but that's how we get to work. That's what we do. No one said anything about not wanting trams. And, the Prime Minister's like, no, I made up my mind. That's what's happening. Now you're all going to get trains. It's very jarring. And it's very like, what do you mean? But I've been paying for the trams and I've been helping with the tram system and I've been showing people in my community how to buy a tram ticket and I've been doing all this stuff. And now you're telling me I have to get on a train. This is a classic Emily metaphor. But like, it's very jarring. And you just, instead of going, okay, well, I'll just learn how to use, like how to do this and I'll go become in a community on a train. That's just not what you're going to do. You've been putting in all this time and effort and working on all of this for ages. So instead, you're going to go and find something that's the next best thing to trams rather than doing what you're told. You know what I mean?
I do.
I think that if you want to make a profit, you obviously have to pivot, but you also have to understand the players in your business in order to pivot. And if you then go, well, that didn't work because the community didn't like it, it's their fault. I don't think that's, taking responsibility for the choices that you've made.
I wonder if this goes back to KPIs as well, because these people in these boardrooms making these decisions,
Yeah.
their goal is to ensure that they are returning shareholder value, particularly in these companies that
100%.
are on the stock market. They might see community as a stepping stone to go,
Yeah.
cool, well, the community's taken us this far, but now, in order for me to ensure that the next time I do a briefing to Wall Street, to stock market, I can say that our profits have gone up, our revenue's gone up by 20%, and I beat expectations that I've done this thing, even at the expense of the community.
Yeah,
I
but it
just
sounds
wonder,
like they expected the communities to continue doing all their free labour without engaging them. That's fine, but come up with another business plan.
is that where the analysis? They sit there and go, cool, we're going to really upset our moderators here,
Yeah.
but oh well, because we're going to get another $20 billion because we're selling all their data. I think we've spoken before about mercenary and missionary. And I think this is where businesses switch to, and we've seen it in this very, very capitalist society. On the New York Stock Exchange at the moment, when you release your figures, and if you meet analyst expectations, if the analysts all think you're going to increase your profits by 20%, you come out and say, I've increased my profits by 20%, your stock price will go down. Because they're actually not looking for you to meet it. They want you to beat it. They want you to go double. And they've seen this with NVIDIA, with all these big companies.
Yep.
And so now the game has been set. And so the external pressure has been set to be like, yeah, I don't care about how your mission is to ensure that you can beat those expectations. I don't care about your noble goal to build a community and foster these people, have ownership and have these communities. And this is where I'm starting to go, oh, yuck. This isn't great. And so I think it is a really noble goal to build a community and something where it's like, okay. And maybe this goes back to
don't talk about it like it's noble. Reddit doesn't exist without its community. Reddit is community. That is the whole business. It's not nobility or whatever it is. If you literally go against the whole thing that Reddit actually is because you want short-term data collection, guess what? You're not going to have data for the next 10 years because no one's going to be on it. Because you've pissed them off.
This is the bit I was talking about. This is the one, like the foible. Like building community is a strategic way to, and we spoke about top around reduce churn, make sure that you've got a mode that people want to be in there.
Yeah.
People aren't going to pivot to another system because I really like spending time in the Reddit community, not in Tumblr or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And this probably goes back to all the trust bank. And I think all these companies have a bunch of marbles, trust marbles. In their jar, and communities can kind of build up this trust capital, or businesses can build up this trust capital for their communities. But I feel like it can be spent very, very, very quickly. It's almost impossible to cover once it's lost.
Yes.
This is where I wonder where, like, you look at Reddits and whatnot in terms of like how many times can they be upset? But I have a counter argument on this. Facebook is still a giant, one of the most popular social media platforms, Meta and its Instagram and everything else. And how many times we found that Zuck has been doing things that perhaps aren't great for what a community would be. Selling data, maybe putting the finger on the scale of justice to make sure that your feed looks a particular way. And we keep on coming back. And so
Yes.
I think,
But
like, this is where I
there's a
start to go,
difference.
like,
There's a difference. Can you see it?
what's the difference?
Zuck has never interfered with the way we use the platform. It's always remained the same. It's always like there's been obviously little feature upgrades and little bits and bobs, but it's never interrupted the way that we use the platform. And because that's what people are going on the platforms for.
All right, so it's a solid brick wall with the standard expectations, to use a metaphor, and we don't care how the brick wall gets built, even though every now and then, if you look at the brick wall, it's selling your data or made of bread. But the experience is still the same.
Yeah.
And so a user is, okay, so this again goes back to the trust of we are fine to have things eroded, whether it be our privacy, our other things, at the expense of having a consistent experience, because that's the trust we have with that platform.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
No, I don't either. But that's the difference. Etsy, Tumblr, and Reddit have changed the user experience and the expectation of the user when they go to that platform. And they've changed it overnight. And the community goes, no, I wanted to go to that platform because I want handcrafted things. I can go to anywhere else to get non-handcrafted things that are cheap. I've been going to Etsy because I like buying, grandma's crocheted tea cozy or whatever.
Correct.
Tumblr obviously had like a really deep community in terms of like
fandoms.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that got taken away. So they're not allowed to engage with the platform in that way anymore. And then, Reddit has been doing like all of the people there you've just been saying I basically have a full-time job working on it. So people are investing their time and energy, and then they're saying that
constantly
they're not
changing the rules.
Yeah, it's really frustrating for people. This is how you lose staff. We've talked about it in terms of staffing situations before. Like if you keep changing and you tell them this is how it goes now, and I'm not even going to bother giving you an explanation, that's how you lose staff really, really quickly. So, and you know what? Sometimes businesses need to make decisions that go against the community, and that's fine because I get it. You need to turn a profit or whatever, and suddenly tra-la-la around the fire's not working for you. I get it. But if you are Reddit...
Sorry, and we call that consultation. That's just... listening circles, I think is what we have.
Who's got the listening stick? Who's got the talking stick, I should say. If you are a business that is built on your community, that's a much bigger risk than if you're Apple. Like Apple builds a community too, right? But they sell technology. Now their community needs to keep coming back, and they definitely need to engage in their community because the community helps on sell. Like you and I are both wearing AirPods because you sell them to me. And
the way Apple builds their community is they charge a high admission price. And so their approach to community is come over these toll gates and you'll be part of this community. So it's a very different approach. And like they're not doing events
Apple
and whatnot.
You expect to tell you what's happening next. You actually have that expectation. You're like, yeah, what's the next thing? Maybe I'll buy that too.
You're buying a ticket through a very high price point to get into that community. So it's the dream of communities in my opinion.
So if you though are entirely based on your community and you are so dependent on everything that they do, it is way more of a risk to go against them than it is for another business who just has it as like a nice part. It's still a risk. And like every business has a community in some form. Nike people bloody love Nike, and
I've recently had to move away from Nike because they're just not good for my feet anymore. And it's been hard to leave that community.
Yeah, it's sad. Right. It's a thing. And like I think that every business has a community. They're generally your customers. So it is really part of the business model and the strategic thinking to engage them. But if you're one of these businesses that we've just talked through, you really don't want to piss them off because, that's your whole business.
I want to close with two thoughts. One is about the eternal September effect. Now, I'm not really sure what this is. ChatGPT served it up for me, but I like it because it's got a nice name. But it talks about how every successful community eventually faces a crisis of scale.
Yeah.
And in any community, you've got new users who come in. Like, you want to have new users. You want to grow your community. Well, often people do want to grow their community. When you bring more people in, it sometimes dilutes that original culture. And these veterans, these people like the moderators, they become gatekeepers. And the old ways is the way we need to do things. It's where communities become a little bit gross.
Yeah.
And platforms often struggle to maintain the quality of the community while they're actually growing. And when you got that, we're trying to grow a business. I agree. Communities are great. But my question back to you, Em, is it worth the effort? Is it worth the struggle? Is it worth all the things that could go really, really wrong? Because it is an investment.
Yeah. Well, I'll counter this, Dale. Can you name one successful business? And maybe you can. This is a general question. Can you name one successful business that you can think of that doesn't have a community attached to it?
The average small business.
What?
I don't want to be part of my cafe's community. I want to go there and get a coffee. I don't want to be part of my plumbers.
Well, that would make you very unique, I think. I think part of the appeal of small business is that, they know your coffee order and you just get to go in there and go, hey, Dave. And they go, hey, Dale. And here's your coffee. Here's your magic. Have a good day.
Shit example, because I do love that. But what about the average trade? I don't want to be part of my mechanics community. And I'll be frank, God, do I love a loyalty program. I am a fiend for collecting points in a loyalty program. I will bend over backwards and pay extra to even if it's not the best deal. But there's some things where I'm like, okay, like Baker's Delight as a really good example is I refuse to scan that bloody thing that means that after 10 loaves of bread, I get a free loaf of bread. Just another, you're a bakery, you sell bread, calm down and be part of that community. But I think there's certain things where I'm like, do I want to be part of this?
Is this 100%, because not all communities are going to be for you. But Baker's Delight definitely have a community. People really go off on those Boston buns. And I think I have a, trade community that are like my friends and or people that have used the trade before. So do you have a plumber that you know, or have you got a Sparky that would be really good? Or because you don't want to, my partner and I just bought a house and I don't want to send in a builder that goes, yeah, it's fine. I don't know. I don't know. I want to send in someone I can trust. So I think that there's community elements to literally everything we do. That's how humans are built. That's how we're wired. We have people help take care of our children. We have people who look after us when we're feeling sad. We have, comfort things that become available that are provided by someone else. I think that it is literally how we function. And to run a business in complete isolation of how we completely function, I believe is a mistake.
Because I refuse to lose the argument, I'm going to say we're both right. Because
I do think they were really good examples, though, and it did. And I also think that you do need to think about the failures. That's why we run this podcast. You got to think about where the potential is to go wrong, in a strategy, because even a good strategy has a potential to fail.
So it's kind of like communities are great until they're not. Much like everything, corporate governance is great until it's not. And so I think in our efforts to argue politely, which was quite good.
You fired me up, Dale.
Be aware when your community is perhaps no longer serving you, and where you maybe need to consult with the community because you're going through a business change. To sum it up, it's a lovely, nice lesson. Didn't win. I didn't convince you.
No, you did convince me that there are pitfalls, but you didn't convince me that it's a bad idea to invest in a community. Well, listeners, there you have it. You now understand a little bit more of the con, and we hope that you don't have a community turn on you in the future. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Big Con podcast. It not only supports us, but means you will get all the latest episodes straight to your device. Do not keep all the fun to yourself either. Share the con around. Your mother, your aunt, your best friend's brother. Tell them to check us out on all their favourite podcast apps. For any further details, head over to our website, thebigconsultingagency.com, and sign up to the mailing list. Bye for now.
See ya.